All right, fax staff. This tutorial will help you understand how to reopen a case within Procentive. It'll just help you highlight the main areas that you need to update to make sure the client module will operate as it should when you're working with the client. So I have taken a previous client and we're going to reopen this within Procentive. First thing you will note is that the referral date or the intake date will actually be the date admin staff are entering a new episode of care within Procentive. So for example's sake, let's say they've updated this to this date, and they will likely often have the same date here under date of illness. Now let's pretend that, actually I should have kept that the same, but let's say a previous date of illness, meaning they were seen before, is 1/2/2016. You should take that date, and I am just going to move this up under the first date of illness. This is something insurance companies want to know, that this is ongoing services for this client, typically for similar issues. And then under the date of illness should be the initial date of contact in the new episode of care. So for example's sake, let's do 8/21/2017. You want to just review the demographic information just to make sure that it's accurate or there hasn't been anything changed. Admin will typically do that, but again, if you are familiar with this client perhaps from previous contact, you will know some things too. You want to update the signature, release on file, and the privacy policy to the current episode of care. These are the, I like to call it the all-in-one form that clients sign, which indicates permission to treat, HIPAA notification, as well as permission to bill insurance. So we'll change that to the current date. So that's updated. And then this may have been closed previously, and if that's the case, erase the date in the file closed area and move the reason file closed to not closed. And then make sure the race and ethnicity is showing current. And the phone tab, you just want to look on that to make sure reminders are set up for appointment reminders here, and making sure there's a cell phone here, or if they're getting emails to check to make sure there's an email listed in the client tab for things to be sent out. Most most clients appreciate texting, it seems, rather than emails. Next thing the next tab you want to go to is diagnoses, and you want to update that in regards to the current episode of care. Now, here's what I want to help you be really clear about. I do not want you to overwrite anything that gets put in these diagnosis boxes. What we're going to do is inactivate them if they are showing active for a previous episode of care. And then we can just put the current date in here when it was made inactive. If people are closing cases out correctly, this should be done in the previous episode of care when the case was closed, but just make sure it's inactive. Now, even if you notice here, I have the same diagnosis here as here in this new episode of care. That's okay. We want to put, though, the dates here of the current diagnoses, and in this case, it is a year out from when it expires for children. If it was an adult, you have up to 3 years for it to expire. Put the program, staff, you're going to put diagnosis date of the current episode and showing up as active. Make sure all these are filled out. I can do this just to show that no, it's not cooperating with me. Oh, I thought I could cut and paste. It's not letting me. But make sure for all diagnoses that the program is listed, as well as a staff member, as well as what we've talked about previously. Next thing I want you to go to is the Programs tab on here, and we're going to make sure that the current episode of care is being reflected in. The reason why back in the Client tab we can erase the case close date is because we are going to be tracking their involvement of opening and closing within this Programs tab. So we're going to hit dates, and notice that a box will pop up here. I'll put in the current first date of contact episode of care with this client. Then when closing the case, I am going to want to put the last date of service with that client. Here's a really important thing to know. Hit close here. Just don't just hit save, because it will not save it, but it'll save it if you hit close here for this episode of care under this program. Then the other things you want to just make sure is you can check under miscellaneous to make sure that the school that the child attended previously is either the same or you'll need to update it, as well as the grade. And that's really all there is to it. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned. We'll have another tutorial coming at you about how to improve your work within Procentive. Thanks.